Hello, John Feldt here. Welcome to the Southeast edition of the Weekly Water Outlook for January 5th, 2013. First of all, Happy New Year. Hope your holidays went well and we're all back to work here and heading into the new year. Well, let's start off with the big picture here, and really it's been this dome of Arctic cold air. The Arctic vortex has relaxed. It's sagging to the south, dominating the weather. And really, over the southeast U.S. for the winter months so far, it's really been pretty active over some areas, and that's because we've had this lingering warm air and it's been battling that cold air, and as it fluctuates, that boundary is set up over the southeast U.S., and that's been enhancing the precipitation. But if we look at last week, what we see here is this is the warmer air here, and we see it's generally sort of offshore, a little bit more moderate here, but we have a little bit more even air mass here, and that's why it's been a fairly quiet week over the last week over the southeast U.S. Now, I wanted to point out the Arctic Oscillation. I haven't showed that for a while, and one of the reasons we can look at this, it gives us some clue as to the overall big picture. And what we see here is we see that the Arctic Oscillation has plunged to a very low level, and that's why we have such an extensive area of cold air across the nation. You can sort of see coldest we've seen, the lowest Arctic Oscillation for quite some time. Now look at this. Over the next week, it comes back into a positive range, and then it comes back down. And from a big perspective here, I think what that's saying is we're going to have quite a variation in temperatures over the next couple weeks, perhaps going from well below normal to well above normal. And that is actually what is expected to occur over the next couple weeks. So if we look at next week, I wanted to show you, actually this is midweek, I wanted to show you how far that Arctic Oscillation or the Arctic air pushes to the south. If you look at the gray temperatures there, the gray readings right in this area here, that is the coldest air, and you can see how far south that pushes. Matter of fact, the red is also quite cold, and you can see that the Arctic air does push way to the south. It covers a very large part of the nation here, and it does cover most of the southeast U.S. Right through the middle part of this week. So that's going to be the big story as far as temperatures go this week. Now, if we look at the past precipitation over the last 7 days, what we do see here in blue is just up to a ½ inch of liquid precipitation. That green over the higher elevations came as some snow, but pretty much other than the immediate coastline where you see that yellow 2 inches or more, it was a fairly quiet week across the southeast U.S. If we look at the percent of normal, this shows that. You can see that most of the area, other than the eastern parts of Virginia and North Carolina and the immediate coastal regions of South Carolina and Alabama, what we can see here is we can see that precipitation averaged out below normal over the rest of the southeast U.S. So how much, as far as a departure from normal, yellows and the darker yellow here is sort of a 1 to 2 inch deficit for the week, and the green is a little bit above, maybe up to an inch above. So most of the southeast U.S., including all of Mississippi, Alabama, most of Georgia, we sort of pulled back a bit by about 1 inch of precipitation over the last week. So I think that was a general story as we look back over the last 7 days. But because it's been pretty wet over the last month, we do see stream flow. We do see a number of spots still in minor flood, or forecast to go into minor flood. Those are those orange dots, high flows in the yellow. So it's nothing all that extensive right now, but just keep in mind that rivers are running pretty high. As far as temperature average over the last week, what we see here is we see that the southeast U.S. was in this shade right here of sort of yellow and orange. So temperatures did average a little bit above normal, not a lot, just in this range right here, so 0 to 3 degrees above normal. Parts of the region here, Mississippi, Alabama, western Alabama, averaged a bit below normal. I did want to mention there's a bit of snow over the higher elevations of the Appalachians, northern Virginia, just sort of giving an update on where the snow is on the ground. Okay, now this week we're going to have two systems moving through. The first one's going to be quite strong, produce winter storm conditions over parts of the Midwest, and just brush the southeast U.S., western parts of the southeast U.S., And then as we get later this week, this is another system coming through on the southern part of the jet stream, and that'll affect the southeast U.S. a bit more. So the first one is mainly to the north. The second one is going to be a bit further south. But the second one isn't nearly as strong as the first, and you can sort of see the jet stream is becoming a bit more sloppy as we get through the week. It's not as strong of pattern as we saw earlier this week. So the surface low tracks, I wanted to point out that these surface low tracks are associated with the first system, and because that system is moving up towards the northeast, that's going to limit the amount of precipitation that gets over our region. Most of the precipitation from System 1 will be up to the north. So as far as the next 7 days, rainfall and snow forecast, most of it is staying out to the west here. You can see right out here, it's staying out to our west, maybe brushing the western parts of the southeast U.S., and some of this will be from the second part of the system coming through later this week. Some of this in this area will be from the first system. This will be the second. But if you look at most of the southeast U.S., it looks like it's going to be fairly modest amounts of precipitation. Now, forecast note here, models were showing this week to be more active. I mentioned that in my last briefing. And there has been a bias just in the immediate past for these systems to be pushing precipitation further east than they've been occurring. So we'll have to keep that in mind, sort of watch that over the next couple of weeks. I did want to point that out. Snow accumulation, the only snow accumulation this week does look like it's going to be over the higher elevations. That could be somewhat significant over that area. Couple of areas here, heavier snow. Elsewhere, no snow is expected. Should be warm enough. So the hazards outlook, just sort of taking a look at the big perspective here, they all deal with cold temperatures this week. And matter of fact, you can see it dips into parts of the southeast U.S. with much below normal temperatures due to that Arctic air pushing south. Now, an interesting pattern, I showed you that Arctic oscillation, how it's fluctuating. This is next week, January 12th through 19th. And look at this. Not only over the southeast U.S., but a large part of the nation, we see temperatures really rebounding. Matter of fact, they look like they're going to be above normal as a jet stream finally relaxes, pushes up to the north. The Arctic oscillation becomes positive. So next week, it does look like it's going to be a rebound with warmer than normal temperatures. Now with that, this is a precipitation outlook for week 2. It does show an enhancement of precipitation over Alabama, northern Georgia, and western parts of the South Carolina and North Carolina. I did want to mention this is where I have that concern about that bias. Models have been bringing this a bit over to this into this area, and actually what has occurred is that axis has been more in this area right in here over the last couple weeks. So we'll have to see how that goes, but right now I'd say I'm having a little bit less confidence in these week 2 precipitation forecasts based on what I've seen in the bias of that model. Now let's look a little bit further out because I think it's sort of interesting, weeks 3 and 4. This is week 3, this is precipitation. Week 3 has a very strong dry bias over the southeast U.S. So the period January 19th through 25th, if this climate model's right, we might experience below normal precipitation. And then week 4, somewhat above normal. So what we're really seeing is this flip-flop pattern. We're seeing 1 week wet, 1 week dry, 1 week wet, 1 week dry. And I think that's going to average out to precipitation maybe closer to normal than we've seen in the past, which has been pretty wet. As far as temperatures go, this is cooler temperatures in green, warmer in orange. So it looks like week 3 cooler, week 4 drier. So flip-flop in temperatures. And that goes along with that precipitation. As you're getting these altering temperature patterns, you're going to have fronts coming through, and that's going to enhance precipitation in some areas and at some times. I think it's interesting here as we get into late January and early February. Look at this. We're getting that pooling of that really cold air again. We have a tight gradient here. We'll have to see again how this works out, but this could be an enhancement of precipitation due to that boundary right there. Okay, so the takeaway from today's briefing, most of the precipitation in the form of rain will be late this week, mainly western parts of the southeast U.S. Most of the southeast U.S. looks like it's going to remain below normal precipitation. Next week, milder temperatures. Then we get into this flip-flop pattern, perhaps wetter on week 2 and week 4, and then going back between a cooler week and a warmer week. So I think when it all averages out, we're going to pull back a bit from the flood potential in the saturated soils. I don't think they're going to go below normal necessarily, but I do think they're going to stay in a broad normal range as we go through January. As always, thanks for listening to today's briefing. If you have any questions, you can email me. If not, I'll be updating you down the road. Thank you.